Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's time to go ahead and resume my essential movie reviews, this time with number 4, the last of the silent films that I'll be reviewing, and that is City Lights with Charlie Chaplin. And this, like I said, it is the last of the silent films that I am reviewing, and this film was released when talkies were in full effect. Silent films had fallen out of vogue. The technology now existed to synchronize all the sounds with what's going on the screen, and so silent films almost disappeared overnight. But Charlie Chaplin conceived this as a comedy in pantomime. That's how it's billed on the opening credits. And it works. And it worked back then because this was a huge box office success. Chaplin wrote this film. He directed this film, he stars in this film, he edited the movie, and he wrote some of the music for the movie. So he definitely had his hands all over this picture. Based on what I've read, this is one of the movies, if not the movie, that Chaplin is best remembered for. And it's easy to see why. This is a very enjoyable, very lighthearted, romantic comedy, if you will, from 1931. Centers around the little tramp character and sort of a relationship he strikes up with this flower girl who happens to be blind. She can't see that he's poor, but through a sort of a accidental run-in with this eccentric millionaire who is trying to kill himself, Chaplin's character rescues him, saves his life. The millionaire feels that he owes the little tramp something, so kind of takes him under his wing. But the millionaire has this real penchant for getting drunk, and when he's drunk, the little tramp is his best friend. He loves him, he gives him money, takes him out, they go drinking, they have all sorts of misadventures, which are really funny. But when this millionaire sobers up, he can't remember who the little tramp is and kicks him out of his house, accuses him of stealing. That sort of weird dichotomy that they have as far as their relationship makes it difficult for the Chaplin character to maintain his illusion of wealth to the blind girl, because he's obviously more attractive to her if he's wealthy than if he isn't. So he does a lot of things to earn money, to kind of shower her with gifts, and also he wants to get her an operation that will restore her sight. But if that happens, she'll be able to see that he's not wealthy and kind of doesn't appear wealthy, because he's definitely not. It's a very sweet movie. It's got a lot of visual comedy that looks improvised but is obviously choreographed. It's very well done. One of the things that's very interesting to note while you're watching this movie is you can sort of count off all the different things in this movie that have been basically stolen directly from it. And it's really interesting to go back and watch where all this influence came from, and you realize how important this film is to comedy, visual comedy, when you realize how many times you've seen all these bits before. I'm sort of seeing it in reverse, obviously. I've seen the things that were influenced by this film after or before I see the original film where a lot of these things came from. So you have to say, wow, this is how powerful this film is, that it influenced all these different things that I've seen throughout my whole life. And this is kind of like going back to the original, wellspring of all this comedy. And for that reason alone, I really recommend you see this movie at least once in your lifetime. It's just a very well done film. Short, sweet, to the point. Very entertaining. I laughed out loud many, many times during this film just because a lot of things caught me by surprise. It's on many, many, many best movies of all time lists, and deservedly so. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed The General. I think The General was a much more of a surprising film for me, because I knew from clips and whatnot kind of what Chaplin was about and what the little tramp character was about. So this one didn't surprise me as much as The General did and Buster Keaton's performance did, but I still enjoyed it very, very much. And what can I say? It's on the essential movies list for a reason. It's well worth seeing, and would strongly recommend you check it out. City Lights, 1931. It's available on DVD from Warner Brothers. You can pick it up probably pretty cheap. This particular version looks really good. One of the interesting things about this film is that because it's a silent film that was released during the era of talkies, the soundtrack is the one that was the same soundtrack that the audiences that saw it back then heard. So you hear everything the same. So there's no worries about seeing this with a different soundtrack or anything, kind of like I pointed out in my review of The General. This film will come with the same soundtrack that the theater audiences heard back in 1931, and it's actually written by Charlie Chaplin, aside from a few songs, I believe. So that's kind of cool. And one of the things that Chaplin did is he integrated sound into this. So it's a silent movie, or like I said, it's a comedy in pantomime, like it says in the opening credits. But there are sound effects in it. At the beginning, there's an unveiling of a statue, and these people stand up to give speeches, and they sort of have that Charlie Brown wah 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 sound coming out of their mouths. So you can see their mouths moving, but there's not actual voice coming out. It's sort of that unintelligible gibberish coming out, and that's kind of an interesting experiment with sound in a silent film. So that's kind of cool too. So City Lights, I would highly recommend seeing it. I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I didn't enjoy it quite as much as I did The General, but it is well worth seeing, and it is definitely obvious the influence that Charlie Chaplin has had on comedy throughout the years since this film was released. So for that, definitely see it. Know your influences, as I've said many, many times. So check it out, City Lights. And while you're checking things out, check out the rest of the videos that I have available here on YouTube on the Media Assault channel. Please subscribe. Stay tuned for the rest of the Essential Movie series. I'll see you next time with a review from a section of the book called Americana. Next review coming up is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with Jimmy Stewart, and I hope to have that up for you in the next couple of days. So thanks again for watching. Take it easy.